Hello, everybody. I am Peter the Book Lover, and this is Movie Talk Episode 16. This is where I talk about the movies that I really enjoy, three at a time. And I really enjoyed these movies, so let's talk about them. Hello, everybody. Peter the Book Lover here, and I really like to read a lot of books, but I also like to watch a lot of movies. So I decided to make videos to where I talk about the movies that I really enjoy. And I really enjoyed these, so I'm going to enjoy talking about them. So hopefully you'll enjoy me hearing me talk about them. But before I get into the video, I want to thank everybody that's here. If you're giving me your time, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being here. I really am happy to have you here. Okay, let's talk about the first movie. The first movie is directed by Mark Webb. This came out in 2014. This is The Amazing Spider-Man Part 2, Enter Electro. And what this movie is about is, this is a sequel to The Amazing Spider-Man, and this is a story to where he fights three villains. We've got Electro, we've got the Hobgoblin, and we've got the Rhino. Plus, this is also a story to where there is a love story between Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker. And what's interesting about the love story is that Peter Parker made a promise to her father at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man, because on his deathbed, he found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, and he made Peter Parker make a promise that he would stay away from Gwen Stacy. And Peter Parker has a big problem trying to do that. Okay, so before I get into what I think about this movie, I'm going to go over the cast. Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, is played by Andrew Garfield. Gwen Stacy is played by Emma Stone. Electro is played by Jamie Foxx. The Green Goblin is played by Dane DeHaan. The Rhino is played by Paul Giamatti. And Aunt May is played by Sally Field. And let me give you my opinion of this movie. Now, the thing about this movie is that I watched The Amazing Spider-Man, and I watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2 back to back. And the thing about it is, I started off liking The Amazing Spider-Man more than I liked The Amazing Spider-Man Part 2. But after time, I wind up enjoying The Amazing Spider-Man 2 a lot more now than I did when I first seen it. I seen it in the movie theaters. And the thing about this movie, it was really hyped up with all the previews. And by seeing all the previews, I thought that I was going to really enjoy this movie a lot more than I did when it came out. But I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, and I was a little disappointed. But then I was out for work, and then I seen half of this movie because they showed it on AMC Movies. And then later on, when it became available here, I decided to watch both The Amazing Spider-Man and this. And it turns out that I like this movie a lot more than I like The Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield. And this is a pretty good story. I mean, it's still got its flaws, but at the same time, this is a very well put together movie. I love the scenes with Spider-Man flying around town. It's lit up a lot better than the first movie. Although Spider-Man's character is a little off in my opinion, but at the same time, I really enjoyed his performance of being Spider-Man. These are all the origin stories of Electro, Green Goblin, and the Rhino. And it's pretty cool on how they become these villains. You know, my favorite story of the villains is the the Hobgoblin storyline. It's pretty interesting. I also enjoyed the Rhino's performance. It's like a very small part of this movie, but it was very enjoyable. And The thing about this movie, the way that it ends, it was really disappointing. But once I've watched this again and I was ready for the things that disappointed me, they're really not that bad. They're not annoying to see, just disappointing if you're expecting a little bit more. But The Amazing Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is a movie that is enjoyable, and the more times you see it, the more times you're going to enjoy it. Okay, the second movie that I'm going to talk about is directed by John Watts, and this is from 2019. This is Spider-Man Far From Home. This is a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming. And what this movie is about is Peter Parker and his class are going on a trip over to Europe, and they visit a bunch of foreign countries. And Peter Parker is planning on going without leaving his spider suit behind, but Aunt May slips the spider suit into his briefcase. And then Peter Parker winds up going on vacation, and as he gets on this vacation, they're in Venice, the town where water's everywhere and everybody's in the boats. And they're in Venice. I think that's in Italy. I'm not sure, but they're in Venice, and there is this water monster that attacks. And Mysterio, this character Mysterio, shows up to fight this sea monster. And Peter Parker tries to help him, and they work together and fight this sea monster. And then later on, they go to London and they fight this other monster. And the same thing that happens, they both show up and fight this thing. Although Spider-Man, when he fights it the second time, he's wearing a different suit. And they both work together and defeat this creature. And at the same time, Nick Fury actually runs into Spider-Man, and he gives him this pair of glasses. And these glasses are really special. And he does something that I don't want to give away, but he does something with these glasses that really relates to the plot. I don't want to give anything away. I really try to avoid spoilers. And that's all I really want to tell you about this movie. Now let me go over the cast before I give you my opinion of this movie. Peter Parker, which is also Spider-Man, is played by Tom Holland. Mysterio is played by Jake Gyllenhaal. Nick Fury is played by Samuel L. Jackson. And I've always enjoyed Samuel L. Jackson's movies. He's great. My favorite role by him is Mace Windu. I loved him in Star Wars. Then we've got Aunt May, which is played by Marisa Tomei. And she actually is in this movie called My Cousin Vinny. And if you really want to see a great movie, My Cousin Vinny is a fantastic comedy. I highly recommend that one. Then we've got MJ, played by Zendaya. And then we've got Happy by Jon Favreau. And my opinion of this movie is, I think this is a great movie. I enjoyed this more the second time that I've seen this. I enjoyed it the first time that I've seen it quite a bit. It's got a couple plot twists. That's the reason why I don't want to give away too much. One thing that was really cool about this movie, there's a part to where Mary Jane actually winds up swinging around with Peter Parker. And instead of her being like Lois Lane in Superman, to where she was like really impressed by it, she was terrified by it. And she said that she never wants to do this again. And that was pretty cool. I enjoyed that. The thing about this is, after the credits, there's a scene that is definitely should be watched. I don't skip the scene afterwards. This scene afterwards, because it's kind of important. It lets you know something kind of big. So make sure you stick around at the end of the credits to see that. And yeah, this was a this was a great movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Jake Gyllenhaal does a great performance of being Mysterio, and I love the plot twist in this, and it's great, man, and I highly recommend it. This is a great Spider-Man movie, and it's worth your time. Now, the third movie that I want to talk about is directed by Marco Brambilla, and this is from 1993, and this is Demolition Man. And what this movie is about is that there is a cop named John Spartan that is after Simon Phoenix. And this is set in like 2016. We're already past 2016, but this came out in 1993, so this is like in the future. And he goes after him, and he winds up capturing Simon Phoenix. But at the same time, there's apparently a bunch of people that die at the same time, so John Spartan gets in trouble too. And in this reality, they take the people that are prisoners, instead of locking them up in prison, they freeze them. And that's how they deal with the criminal element. And it led to this other futuristic world. And then later on, somebody releases Simon Phoenix. And Simon Phoenix is definitely a dangerous criminal. So they need somebody from the past, because this future is a very peaceful future. They've done away with crime. They've done away with poverty and everything. Except there's an element of people that stay out of the system. And they're the only ones that have to deal with poverty. But everybody else, it's a dystopian type of world. It's a lot like A Brave New World. And so they unfree Simon Phoenix. He's the criminal. And then John Spartan is Sylvester Stallone gets defrosted, and he goes after him. And this is a movie to where it deals with how Sylvester Stallone from our time deals with this new future, because it's a lot of unique things are in this future. Like instead of having a radio station, they actually listen to commercials for a radio station. And there's a thing to when anybody swears, they get fined for every time they swear. And it's an interesting future. And of course, this is an action movie. I don't want to give anything away, but that's pretty much sets up the world that this is in. Now, let me give you the cast of this movie. Now, this movie is John Spartan, that is played by Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone is a famous actor that's amazing. I love his Rocky movies. I love his Rambo movies. He's fantastic. We got Simon Phoenix, played by Wesley Snipes. And this is one of my favorite movies by Wesley Snipes. He does a fantastic job of being this villain in this movie. Lenina Huxley is played by Sandra Bullock. She's another actress that I enjoy. We've got Edgar Friendly, played by Dennis Leary. This is a great comedian, and he's another actor that I enjoy a lot of his movies. We got Raymond Cocteau, which is played by Nigel Hawthorne. We got Wasteland Scrapped. Now, this is played by Jack Black. Now, you might be like, I don't remember Jack Black being in this movie. That's because Jack Black is just like an extra character in this movie. But he's listed in the credits, and I had to go search for him. But yeah, he's actually in this movie for about 2 seconds. Blink and you miss him. Now let me give you my opinion of this movie. Now, my favorite performance in this movie is Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes is a fantastic villain. I love his character. The way that he deals with this world is fantastic. His performance in this movie is fantastic. And Sylvester Stallone does a great performance of being the guy that's hunting after him. There are some great action scenes in this movie. The beginning of this movie, he actually jumps out of a helicopter with a bungee cord, which is pretty amazing and pretty cool. And it's a good action movie in the beginning. And then the freezing cryogenic center, where they freeze people, there's some really good special effects on them freezing them. And then when you get to this new world, the look of it is amazing. I love the look of the police car. It's got these doors that lift up, and it's pretty cool. I love the look of the cop cars, and then the action in this movie is pretty good. There's some pretty good fight scenes between them, and also Dennis Leary's performance of being this leader of this underground society is a pretty cool idea. Believe it or not, though, Dennis Leary is the not very funny in this movie, and usually he's a very funny guy. He plays like the leader of the outcasts. Believe it or not, Sylvester Stallone and Sandra Bullock are very comical in this movie because the way that he deals with things, like there's a part of this movie where she asks him if he wants to have sex, so she's like, yeah, sure, and then she puts this thing on his head, and then she puts it on her head, and they have like virtual reality sex, and it's pretty kind of funny. And there's also this funny thing about the three seashells. If you haven't seen this movie, that's actually a funny element. There's three seashells, and do not expect an explanation about the three seashells. They never give one. Now, this is a very fun movie. I've seen this a couple times, maybe 3 or 4 times, and every time I've seen this movie, I really enjoy it. There's a plot twist in this movie that's pretty cool and enjoyable. And if you gave this movie your time, I think you'd really enjoy this, especially if you haven't seen it. Okay, so that's the movies. I want to thank you for being here. I really enjoyed talking about these movies. I enjoyed watching these movies. These movies were a lot of fun to watch. All these movies that I talk about, these are movies that I recently seen. I do not talk about movies that I watched a while ago. I want to make sure these are fresh in my mind, and I really enjoyed these. I enjoyed talking about them, so thank you. All right, I want to thank you for checking out this episode of Movie Talk. This is episode 16. If you like the video, can you please do me a favor and give me a thumbs up? Those mean a lot to me. Every time I see a lot of those, I really enjoy that, and that lets me know that you're having a good time. If you can, please leave comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. And if you haven't subscribed, can you please subscribe to the channel? I always got new content coming, so it's worth your time to subscribe because I constantly make more videos if you like my content. And that's about it. So I want to thank you for being here, and I hope to see you in the next video. I am Peter the Book Lover, and thank you for coming by.